So,
Kris Millegan is the editor of Trine Day Press. It's a publishing company in Oregon that publishes books no other publishing company will touch. They've published the underground bestseller on the Builder Bridge group. They've also delved into state crimes against democracy, including the terrorist attacks of September 11th, with the authors like Daniel Hopsiker and his classic Welcome to Terrorland. They've also published Barry and the Boys, also by Daniel Hopsiker, which documents how families like Bush and Clinton have been secretly involved in narco trafficking for decades, with everything that goes along with this, including money laundering and assassinations. But that's only a beginning. If you go to the website for Trying Day Press, you will find that it's a wonderland of hidden information where the author go to great personal risk to bring their information to the public. Kris Millegan has been at the forefront of the alternative media for decades and now has his own podcast. Kris, welcome to the show. Where are you? At
well,
Oregon?
yes, thank you very much. Yes, I'm outside Eugene, Oregon. And
Yeah, your the books that you published for Trying Day Press have accompanied me through life, and at different decades of my life have formed my political thinking. Everything from, of course, the Bilderberg Group, Dr. Mary's Monkey, Welcome to Terrorland, more recently, Barry and the Boys.
yeah, well, I got involved. My father was a intelligence officer, and he got involved. Oh, he first was an exchange student to China in the 30s, and there he was working with the State Department. And then in 1939, he was supposed to go to Switzerland to school after college to learn about international relations. But there was a something going on in Europe in 1939, so he didn't get. He got as far as the Washington D.C. in the basement Library of Congress, and he started work under Archibald MacLeish, who was the Librarian of Congress and a member of the Order of Skull and Bones. And then he uh, they gave him a desk and told him to become an expert on the Philippines. Okay. And then Bill Donovan walked in, and my dad was at the beginning of an organization called Coordinator of Information. And then that turned into OSS, Office of Strategic Services. And then while he was in OSS, this was during World War II, he got drafted. And OSS said, great, we're going to put you into the military, going to put you into military intelligence, but you still are reporting back to us. Okay. And so then he got involved in quite a few things during the war. Uh, Worked in psychological warfare, was on MacArthur's staff, and then, well, like he told me, uh, he went through a couple of alphas and then soon found himself in the CIA. And he was in his job was branch chief head of East Asia Analysis Office. Okay, you have a station chief in Saigon, you have a section chief in Honolulu, and then you have the branch chief back in D.C. And then oh, a bunch of things happened, but uh, he made a trip in 1956 to Southeast Asia, and then after he came back from there, things changed. I was just a little kid, and we were told we were going to move to Rochester, New York, and then uh, that didn't happen. The farm we were on, the house sold. We moved to another house in Fairfax, and then we all of a sudden my dad was made a vice president of a college, and and we moved from Virginia to Tennessee, and then. Uh, Oh, we were there a couple years. Again, I was just a little kid, and the president of the college quit, and they asked my dad to be president, and he quit and moved the whole family out to Oregon. And I was like 9 years old. And I didn't know what was going on. And then about 10 years later, my dad took me into well, he first asked me what I thought of the Vietnam War, and I gave a flip answer to my dad. I said, "Well, you have a sack of hand grenades and there's some rice patties, and you go throw the hand grenades to win it for the good guys wearing the white hats." I'd been raised on John Wayne and World War II, and then Dad said we had to have a talk, and so then.
Yeah, and I think you told me you thought it was going to be the pot talk or the sex talk, right? And there was a witness from a university there in the room.
Right, right. There's Dr. D.F. Fleming from Vanderbilt was there. He wrote the book The Cold War and Its Origins. And at that point, my dad, his first words out of his mouth were the Vietnam War is about drugs. There's these secret societies behind it. And I'm thinking my dad's talking about the mafia. I mean, that was the only secret society I could think of. And
Yeah,
and
you don't hear much. You don't hear much about secret societies in American politics. It's kind of even a taboo to mention it. I mean, I've been laughed at so many times for talking about the influence of secret societies. Um, it's interesting that your dad mentioned that as an operating factor. Could you go into a little bit about what he meant and what he continued to tell you?
And did your
well,
father ever talk to you about secret societies?
well, that was the talk. Like I said, he said the Vietnam War is about drugs. There's these secret societies behind it, and then he said, and communism is all a sham. These same secret societies are behind it. It's all a big game. Okay. At that point in time, I thought my dad was nuts. Okay. I'd been stuffed under desks because the Ruskies were going to bomb us. It just didn't compute. It didn't make any sense to me. Okay. And so then they started to tell me all about my dad's intelligence career, which had never been mentioned in the house. And then they started talking about how, quote unquote, they were playing out a lose scenario in Vietnam. And again, it didn't compute. It didn't make any sense to me because they were trying to draft me at that time and send me to Vietnam to go kill people, but I had to kill them with rules. And that wasn't making any sense to me. I mean, if you kill somebody, you kill them, but you got to kill them with rules. Yeah, and so it didn't make any sense to me. And then they started talking about propaganda, and then I remember that my dad just stopped in mid sentence. Okay, he said there's spray pieces, and he just stopped because it was very apparent that I had no idea what he was talking about. It didn't compute. It didn't make sense to me. Okay, so I started to look into it and oh, I mean, this was, like I said, this was the day before my 20th birthday. I was married, had a 6-month-old kid, had started a record store, was putting on rock and roll dances. This is the late 60s. I was having a fun time. So
He told you they were out to opiate your generation.
yes, yes,
What did he
yes.
mean by that?
Get us hooked on drugs.
The
Okay.
CIA, the CIA,
Well,
and
not
or the
not
secret
not not
societies.
really. The CIA. It's more Skull and Bones. The secret society, because see,
For
Skull and
those of us,
Bones.
yeah, Skull and Bones, they're a secret society. What did you tell us a little bit about them?
Well, they were started in 1832 at Yale University. Okay, by William Huntington Russell and Alonzo Taft. And William Huntington Russell's family were it was Russell and Company, and it was the third largest opium concern in the world. Okay, and uh, it's a long story about the opium, but they uh, were shipping a lot of opium, making a lot of money. Okay, a lot of big fortunes. I mean, there's a very good book from a professor in Australia, Professor Carl Trocki, called "Opium and the Political Economy," and it shows you how whoever controls the opium in the country generally control the country and the thing. And now uh, this started off with Chiang Kai-shek in China. Okay, he was the first government that started using opium proceeds to run his government. Okay, and there was some Americans there that were helping him in World War II, and they learned about this, and so they started, doing it themselves so that they wouldn't have to ask Congress for money. They could use this money for their
Black
proxy war.
budgets, black
Yeah,
budgets,
for
proxy
the
wars.
black budget, right?
That's
And
that's that's a recurring theme, like Nicaragua in the '80s when the
yes,
CIA did it, and
right,
that's something you published a lot about, like with Barry and the Boys, Daniel
right,
Hopsicker.
right,
So, yeah,
right.
yeah.
And you see, um, drugs have been coming into this country, since the 1800s. Okay, some of them come in through mercantile things, some of them come in through military, some of them come in through diplomatic missions. Different ways, and then uh, so one thing that George H.W. Bush, a member of the Order of Skull and Bones, okay, as vice president under Reagan, one of his jobs was to take all these different drug trades because uh, they were starting to step on each other's toes. Okay, so he tried to coordinate those and kind of make them semi-official and run them through Arkansas, run the money through Arkansas through the bond markets there, and really see Clinton was a lieutenant in the Bush crime family. Okay, and then one thing that's happened, okay, because um, drugs are very corrupting. Okay, because uh, you can make lots and lots of money because they're illegal. Okay, so with that money that you make, you start corrupting, you start passing it out, and start corruption. And we have the situation now where criminal gangs in countries, because of the drug trade, they become so strong. The criminal gangs have even taken over the countries. Okay, and so and now I mean it's not just the CIA that is running drugs. Okay, every intelligence agency in the world is involved with drug running because it gives you free money. Okay, and if people are in the position to do that, uh, they generally do. That's one thing that Daniel discovered. One thing that he would talk about a lot was, you know, the drugs are being run by all the different intelligence agencies. Then he
Oh,
was
well, what
like
was it like? Oh,
Gangster
Gangster
Planet.
Planet. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Daniel Hopsicker. What was it like? Did you ever meet Daniel Hopsicker? Do you ever meet these people that you publish their books?
Oh yeah, Daniel. Well, see, I was running an email list called Conspiracy Theory Research List, and then I also started a email list called CIA Drugs, and Daniel was on that, and we'd become friends. And then I started putting on um, CIA drug symposiums, and Daniel came to those, and that's where we met. And then
What year was this? Had you already started publishing?
no, this was about 1999, I believe. Okay.
1999. Okay.
Yeah, we did
When
one in
did you
Eugene.
publish? When did you publish your first book?
That was Burying the Boys, and I
Oh,
did
that was
that
the
about,
first one.
yeah, 2000. Yeah, Daniel, uh, you know, uh, he sent me an email one day, said, my book's been with an agent in New York, and nobody's going to publish it. It's been there for 2 years." And I said, "Well, Daniel, they tell me that I've got a computer on my desk and I can make a book." So,
Interesting, interesting. I just read Burying the Boys this year, uh, and it really, or last year, and it really filled in the role of the Clintons and the Bushes in the narco trafficking. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Barry Seals, who Barry Seals was?
well, Barry Seal was a kid who liked to fly an airplane. Okay, he started flying planes when he was in high school. Okay, I mean, sometimes he would, instead of take a car to go see his local high school, play a game over there, he would fly over there. And actually, he flew Johnny Rivers around, a American music guy. And then he started to run guns to Castro, okay, in Cuba. Okay, it was some of his first things. And then, oh,
The
he
Western
got involved
guy.
in the drug trade, and also was working for the intelligence services. He was flying planes into Mena, Arkansas, full of cocaine.
Why don't you tell us about the Bilderberg Club, who they are, how they function, what role they play in American politics, American life, world
Well,
politics? Talk to us about this bestseller by Daniel
well,
Heston.
well, Bilderberg Group was a group started by Prince Bernard of the Netherlands, and it was basically a some of them were old fascist, okay, and it was basically where the top, the top leaders of corporations and a bunch of politicians and the royals would all get together and talk about how they're going to manipulate things in their favor, in the favor of the elites. So it
Were
was
the goals
basically
of Bilderberg initially benign?
no, I wouldn't say it was benign. No, no, no. I mean, you've had you know different power structures in the world. We've got a pretty big power structure around money, okay, and then you have a power structure around some political ideologies, okay, such as fascism and authoritarianism. So I know I wouldn't call the Bilderberg Group benign. No.
How do they influence world politics? How do they control other politics? Is that with subgroups?
Well, they would bring people together and they'd say, okay, this is what we're going to concentrate on, for this year. I mean, they had their meetings once a year. Okay. And so they would pick people to bring to this group. Okay. Like they brought Clinton one year. Okay. And try and suss out leaders and see if they'll, work with them and stuff. So it's really it's top money people and top political people plus the royals. Okay, I mean, why are the royals there?
The book you published on Bilderberg is an underground bestseller. People photocopy it. I know publishers don't like to hear that. Yes, they photocopy it and they sell it in the third world. It's
Oh, I've heard
anyway,
I've heard that.
yeah.
I've been told by people that it's all through Mexico, all through South America, all the way down to the tip of Chile. You can find it. Yes, yes, and that's okay. That's good. I mean, I'm not doing this to make money. Okay, I'm doing this to try and understand how the world really works. Okay, and have discussions and look at it.
Yeah, when discussing the different possibilities of the Kennedy assassination in terms of who did it, some point to the mob, others point to Cuba, while still others point to elements within the intelligence apparatus. However, I understand it once in a while the role of secret societies are mentioned.
Yes, yes. When I look at here's how the secret societies run the world, okay, or try and run the world. The top level is mining, metal, and money. And you think about it, and it kind of makes sense. If you control the mining that the metal comes from, that the money's based on, you're in a good position. Okay, I had an author that could affect that. I got his book out. He was dead in 7 days. Okay, he got run over by a hit and run lorry in London, and that's called book is called Calling All Angels. Okay,
Wait,
and
you said he knew how to affect the mining business?
right. He was a gold mining engineer. His daddy was a gold mining engineer. His grandpapa was a mining engineer, and he, like I say, it's called Calling All Angels. It's about the death of his Aunt Jane Stanford, who husband started Stanford University. But then, okay, so mining metal and money, and then the middle layer is a very active layer, and that's drugs, guns, and oil. Okay, and it was a guy from Skull and Bones who actually sent uh, a gentleman here by the name of Drake to Pennsylvania to make the first oil well. Okay, and they've controlled the drug trade since the 1800s, and then um, arms. Connecticut, where Skull and Bones is based, is where they started making the submarines. They started making the helicopters. GE is based there, makes all, and a bunch of the rifle manufacturers are there. So it's very heavily um, armaments manufacturing. And then where this meets the road is media, because they've got to control what you're hearing. They got to control the media, and then movies slash music. They got to control the culture or it'll bite them. Okay. And then the very last one is quote unquote magic. Okay. Their ability to hoodwink us and their preponderance on using mass trauma rituals to keep us in line.
Like
The
September
Kennedy,
11th?
yes, and the Kennedy assassination. At its core, the Kennedy assassination was a ritual kill. It's called the killing of the king. You kill the king, you take his power, and everybody knows that you did it. Okay, so and it you can look at it at a very long-standing operation. I mean, some generals didn't just wake up one day and say, "Hey, we're going to kill the president." Okay, this when I look at the Kennedy assassination, I see ducks that were put in a row before he was even elected. Okay, and
Explain the function of the patsy.
well, you got to blame somebody. You don't want them coming after you. Okay. I mean, it's just like in 9/11, your patsies were the guys piloting the planes. I mean, those planes, they didn't pilot it. They were on radio. There was a radio control on it there because you don't want somebody saying, "Oh, wait a minute, I don't want to die and pull up and not hit the buildings," right? Okay.
Remote
So
control.
they're
Remote
radio.
control.
Right,
Remote.
right. Radio control.
Or do you think they downed the planes and then just used missiles?
No, no, they used actual planes. They,
The
they,
the airline planes?
yes, they used the actual airline planes. I mean, I got to sit and watch, people come up with all kinds of, oh, there was no planes in the Pentagon, no planes in New York. They were UFOs. They were what, that's BS. Okay. I mean, and what that does is it makes people, uh, that say there's something going on with 9/11 honestly to look ridiculous because they come up with these ridiculous proposals.
Hmm.
So, if you're going to speak of conspiracies of crime, which word do you think gets more to the heart of these events, like the Kennedy assassination?
Well, I think a study of the secret societies and their objects is one thing that I found. I mean, my dad, when he talked to me, he just said secret societies. He didn't say skull and bones. Okay, it took me 20 years to figure out that he was talking about skull and bones because it just, a lot of the stuff that he told me, it didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand it until I came across Professor Anthony Sutton's book, America's Secret Establishment, an introduction to the Order of Skull and Bones. And then, see, they're called the Brotherhood of Death. And one thing that I found, I mean, the basic secret society, okay, I mean, Skull and Bones is a uh, output of a German club. Okay, I mean the guys who started it were at the University of Berlin. Okay, and they came back, and this was a chapter of that secret society. And then they also have sister societies in China. Okay, because just when they are, you know, uh, yeah, they're making some money on the opium uh, over here, but also there's people in China that were making big money too.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite book of all the books how many books have you published? You must have a favorite.
Oh, about 180. And well,
Do you read them
one,
all? That must
yes,
give you a
I've read
different
them all.
perspective.
I mean, I've got a huge library, 5,000 books, and I like books. I like to read.
That must I can't imagine the perspective you must have from reading all the books you publish.
Well, and that's important thing. I mean, I tell people two things. I tell, caveat lector, be aware of what you read. Don't be afraid to read something, but but uh, you know, don't base everything just on one book. Okay. One
Sure.
thing that I found out is that, there's lots of different perspectives, and, everybody brings something to the table, you know, and so I can't recommend just one book because one book isn't going to explain it all.
Mhm.
Okay. And
I saw that one of your most recent ones was The Manchurian Journalist. That title really caught my attention. What is a Manchurian journalist?
Well, the Manchurian Journalist, it's really it's kind of about Scientology. Okay, this guy was um, Scientology had approached him to do some writing for him, and he did some writing for him. And I mean, it's not an anti-Scientology book, but it's just about um, he's writing about this guy who he wrote like the Looming Tower. I can't think of his name right now, but he was a big expert on 9/11, and giving more of the establishment view. And he shows where this guy was basically, uh, you know, favored by the intelligence agencies all along and brought to his position. Okay, to
Operation
influence.
Mockingbird?
Kind of like a Mockingbird thing. I mean, Mockingbird
Yeah.
was a particular operation that went from here to there, but it's something similar to that. Yes.
Do you see that over the years that there's been a opening of the American mind in terms of they're now more accepting of these kinds of things? Do you see kind of any changes in the culture to accepting that there's state crimes against democracy?
Well,
That it's kind of
there's
being more
some,
out in the
but
open.
we're in a very toxic environment here in the United States. I mean, we've been subjected to psychological warfare for generations. Okay, most of the world has, and um, you know, we've been very much divided here. Okay, and a lot of it through fake news. I mean, Fox News has the largest number of people watching it, but they lie all the time and they tell propaganda and they get, because what's the object of propaganda? Okay, I mean, when I first started uh, to read conspiracy books, okay, because I told somebody in the 70s a little bit about what my daddy told me, and they looked at me and said, "Well, you're a conspiracy theorist, you know?" So I went, I said, "Well, what's a conspiracy theorist?" So I decided to take it on as an intellectual discipline. So I went into every bookstore I could find, okay, religious, just commercial, feminist, whatever, every bookstore I could find. And I said, take me to your conspiracy section. And all of them had at least one book,
Yeah,
okay. And so
interesting.
I gathered these books and started to read them and read them and it came to me after a while. Wait a minute, because I can find a book that blames it all on the Jews. I can find a book that blames it all on the Mormons. I can find a book that blames it all on the Masons. I can find a book that blames it all on the secular humanists. And so I started to look at these books. And, well, these are kind of formula books, okay? I'm not supposed to like you, and you don't like me. So let's throw stuff back and forth, to get us fighting each other. Okay, so and then see, and the other thing that I learned in conspiracy theory is that a conspiracy theory doesn't have to be true to be effective. Okay, and so this person over here believes this conspiracy theory. This person over here believes this, and so you got these people fighting each other and about BS. Okay,
Yeah,
and
I don't think the term conspiracy theory is that helpful. It's come out that that was used by the CIA to discredit those who question the JFK assassination. Lance
well,
DeHaven
yes,
Smith proposed,
that's an
speaking of,
old canard. Conspiracy theory is older than that, but yes, the
yeah,
CIA encouraged to call people conspiracy theories so that people would think bad about them because we aren't
Lance,
supposed to believe in conspiracy theories. We're supposed to believe in facts and whatnot. But right now, it's people are creating all kinds of different narratives. Okay, I mean, because that's all a conspiracy theory is a narrative. Okay, is A went to B to C. Okay, so but there are real conspiracies. Okay,
crimes. Lance DeHaven Smith spoke of state crimes against democracy, and he said that we should use that instead of conspiracies because the word conspiracy kind of means uh, offhand that it's not true. That's how people hear it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I I've spent 40 years being called a conspiracy theorist. Okay,
So it
and
doesn't face you.
well, you don't enjoy it. You don't enjoy it, and I would have stopped my research, just because of that if it hadn't been true. Okay, but I kept finding, well, yeah, there's something true here. There's something real here. Yeah, yeah, because. Um, conspiracy happens, and I mean, and it's not just state crimes, but people conspire to steal money from people, through mercantile means, through all kinds of different means. So,
Has anybody from the intelligence services told you anything that wasn't published and you might be able to share with us that would be surprising?
oh, well, was very interesting early on. I would, sometimes search out and, talk to old spooks and old military people. Okay.
Spooks, yeah. Like your
And we
father was
would,
a spook.
figure out, oh, these military people say, oh, that's what I was doing 20 years ago. Okay. Because, they're controlled by compartmentalization. Well, because of the internet, okay, it's been harder and harder to compartmentalize people. And so starting about 5 years ago, I started getting calls from military people and spooks because they were figuring out and they were just trying to get some confirmation. And this one guy I met, he was a trainer for SEAL teams. Okay, and one thing, and he told me one time they were in revolt. They were very upset about how they were being used. Okay, and he told me about this uh, gun, a rifle, okay, that they have that can hit targets over a mile away, okay, with very good accuracy. And the bullets have a little camera on the tip, okay, so the people back in the Situation Room can watch the action.
Interesting, interesting. Well, we want to get your take on current events because there's a lot that's been happening geopolitically with the war in Ukraine, and the political culture in the United States seems to be changing with the second Trump administration. Would you care? We know you're not a fan of Trump, so we'd like to get your take on current
Well,
events.
you know, I'm going to go off a little bit here. There's there's a group around that I've observed around Putin and Netanyahu. Okay, there's a Jewish sect. They wear fedoras. Okay, and and you know they've been working very hard for many years against the United States of America and our Constitution. I mean, there was people starting working against our Constitution before the ink was dry. Okay, and it's my contention that one of the reasons that Putin um, invaded Ukraine, okay, was to create war on the world stage, okay? Because war is not popular, is it? I mean, people don't like war. They'd rather have peace, okay? So Putin starts that war, and it makes some uh, make some waves, but it wasn't enough. So then you have Netanyahu do the stuff in Gaza, okay? Because what that did was it suppressed the vote. A whole bunch of Americans, more Americans didn't vote than voted. Okay, so you had a situation here, and no, right now America just, I mean, Trump and Musk, there isn't really a change in American things. It's it was done through collusion and other things. But
But this,
if you saw Trump today talking with Zelensky, I mean, he acts like a mob boss. Okay, and because you go back and you look at his history, and he is not to be trusted. And I apologize to the world for Mr. Trump. And uh,
okay. The populism, though, it's new in American politics. It's a new
oh
phenomenon.
no, we've had populism here for a long time. I mean,
Okay.
the whole America First thing goes back over 100 years. Okay.
You're not relieved that there's not somebody in the White House with the name of Bush or Clinton.
Well, yes, yes, I am, and whatnot. But Trump is just why does he want Greenland? Okay, you go back and
Yeah,
look at what the powers that be would like to do. I mean, they'd like to create a North American part. They'd like to create, these different things. So, it's just another way to get to control by rich people. And I'm a firm, I liked Abraham Lincoln. Okay, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Okay, and that is not what Trump is delivering. And uh, I mean.
Any of Trine Day books been made into movies?
Uh, well, that's an interesting question. Okay, uh, Daniel Estulin. Okay, with the true story of the Bilderberg. Okay, that came out of he was in Spain, and he had a very good agent, and that agent got a contract that said, well, if this book gets made into English, there's going to be $126 million blockbuster movie. Okay, And so Daniel was in the United States one day, and we went to LA, and sure enough, I met with these people, and they were saying, "Yeah, we're going to make $126 million movie about the true story of the Bilderberg Group." And these people owned the Terminator franchise. Okay, and I said, well, you might have some political problems, and they said, oh, there won't be any problem. Once Terminator 4 comes out, we'll have enough money in our bucket, won't make any difference at all. And I said, okay. And yes, they came to Madrid and announced a $126 million movie. But gee, you know what happened? Well,
What?
about six weeks later, their company went bankrupt and they didn't make the movie. And I talked to people in Hollywood and they said, oh, uh, they still have their money. We don't know what happened. Okay. Then, okay, the executive producer for the TV show here, 24, saw how 24 was being used to propagandize the American people. Okay. So he looked around for real books. He found ours. Okay. He wanted to make three of our books into movies. Okay. I'm I get them in contact with the authors, go down there, have these big meetings, and they bring other people in, Academy Award winning directors. They're going to make these movies. Well, he's got Nick Bryant there for the Franklin scandal, and I get a call from this guy. He says because he'd been in a meeting with Nick, and Nick had left, and he'd gotten a call said it was a computerized phone voice, and it says, "We're very glad that you and Nick are working. We hope this works." And he was able to trace it, and it came from the back office of an FBI agent office in Boston. And he asked me what's going on. I says, well, those people are probably right there in LA because if you know what you're doing, you can spoof the federal phone system. Okay. And so I got Nick to get back to the office. They got another phone call. This one came from the back office of a Seattle FBI agent. And, and so they were working on this. And then I get a call from him one day, and he says, "Gosh, there's this white SUV chasing me all around town. I can't shake him." And this guy was driving a Ferrari. Okay, he says, "I can't shake him," and so, but they kept on working on these movies. Okay, then he called me up one time and says, "Hey, they're trying to get me fired. There's a rumor that I'm out selling OxyContin on Sunset at night." Says my boss knows that's not true. So they kept working on these movies. Then he calls me and says, well, I got to take a sabbatical. And I say, okay, what's up? And he tells me somebody met his wife on a street corner and says, if your husband doesn't stop what he's doing, we're going to kill him. And then you, what are your children going to do?
Wow.
Okay. So he comes back from the sabbatical, calls me up and says, well, I guess we're just making Will Ferrell movies. Okay.
Wow. Incredible. It's
Uh,
interesting the tactics that the intelligence agents use to keep a lid on this thing. And you think everybody knows that the intelligence agents and apparatus throughout the world sell drugs, but everybody doesn't know. And it's like the stuff that we're talking about would be very surprising to a lot of Americans. And it's interesting how they keep a lid on the media.
right. Well, that's one of the things they have to do. And then we did, because Netflix did come out with one called American Murders, the Danny Casolaro story. Okay, that was based on one of our books. Uh, what's that? The Last Circle. Okay. And it's a very good book, and that was like a four-part series, and did very well. And it's my hope that later on, you know,
Okay, so you actually have one of your books made into a Netflix series.
yes.
And what's the storyline around that? What's it called?
Dan, it's called American Murders: The Story of Danny Casolaro.
Who's Danny
On
Casolaro?
Netflix. Yeah, Danny Casolaro was a investigative journalist here who was killed. He was looking into the oh, what do you call it? Oh, name for a big organization. He was looking into corruption, and it, the corruption, it ties together the drug running, intelligence services, the mob, and different things.
Before we let you go, can you tell us if there's any new books you're about to publish? Anything on the pipeline?
I've got one called Two World Wars and Hitler, Who's Responsible? Very, very good. Also, we have Esoteric Hollywood 3 coming out.
Is that Jay Dyer?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen some of his videos. Interesting. Interesting they
Yeah,
mentioned that.
yeah,
Okay.
Jay, a very nice guy.
Jay Dyer, yeah. Okay, Kris, the video that I did with you in 2019, YouTube banned it 3 years later for medical misinformation, even though we didn't talk about anything medical. But it's up on my BitChute channel, and now we're doing the podcast together. I don't know if you remember from 2019, but the books that you've published have been like the soundtrack to my life. They've really formed my political imagination, everything from Bilderberg to Dr. Mary's Monkey to Barry and the Boys. So there's something for everybody. And we want to thank you for all the good work you do, trying to get the truth out there. And you're a legend. And how can people follow your work and get in touch with your podcast? You have a podcast now?
Yeah, trineday.com.
Okay.
Trineday.com. And we have a podcast, and we also do a roundtable once a month too. Okay. With Paul Fitzgerald, who was one of the Fitzgeralds of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And they're all very interesting.
Okay.
Here it is, tryandday.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yep, that's it.
Okay, Kris Millegan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Thank you
too.
so much, Kris. Thank
You
you.
bet.
Peace.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
God bless. Bye-bye.